Okay, welcome back. We are on chapter 12 of The Ghost Grave. Remember in chapter 11, we took a little side trip to learn about Mr. Turlip. He's the bank manager. He lost all of his money in an investment thing where now he felt desperate and he stole. So he became a criminal, right? And he stole the money from Cash for Critters. He was the guy who dressed up and with the whatever that was, put it over his head. You know what I'm talking about. And he went to at gunpoint and he took all that money. And then he went and he gave a reward, offered a reward for the money and everything. So everyone thought he was this great guy when he was actually the one who stole the money. What a jerk. Okay, but then we also found out that tomorrow is the day that he's planning on digging up that money and leaving for Florida. Oh, same day that Josh is going to dig up Willie's bones, and they're both buried in the Carbon City Cemetery. All right, let's see if we find out what's going to happen. Chapter 12. Florence's screaming woke me at sunrise. Instead of pulling the blankets over my head and blocking my ears, I got up, dressed quickly, and propped the note on my pillow. I planned to grab an apple to eat along the way and tiptoe out of the house without waking Aunt Ethel. But when I got downstairs, she stood in the kitchen with mixing bowls and measuring cups lined up on the counter. "You're up early," she said. "So are you." "I have a cake customer today. She requested carrot cake, and I want to get the carrots grated and the baking done while the kitchen's still cool." I took an apple from the refrigerator. "I've been thinking about that stray cat," she said. "And I decided you were right. You should feed it and tame it and take it to the vet to be neutered. That's what Florence would have done. Then we can try to find someone who will give it a good home." "Thanks," I said. She really seems hungry. I decided not to mention any kittens quite yet. "If you keep the food out there by the tree house, the cat probably won't bother Florence." "Okay, that's what I'll do." "I can drive you to Carbon City to get some cat food this afternoon after I finish my cake." I couldn't tell her it wasn't necessary because I had already bought cat food. At the rate Mrs. Stray was gobbling the food, I'd need more soon anyway. I could send my first letter and see if there was any mail for me today. Now that my summer was so exciting, I wasn't as mad at Mom and Stephen for sending me here. I wanted to hear from them, to know how they were doing. I knew they were eager to hear from me too. I thought about the kittens I'd written about. I thought about the letters I'd written about the bat, the peacock, and the ghost. Would Mom and Stephen worry too much when they read those reports? Maybe I should add a few lines about Mrs. Stray and the chocolate cake, just to let them know I was really okay. "I'm hiking up the river this morning," I said. "I might not be back until after lunch." "No hurry. We'll go to Carbon City when you return." She started scrubbing carrots with a brush, then stopped, leaning against the sink. "Is something wrong?" "I think I'd better sit for a minute. I feel a bit dizzy." I took her arm and helped her to a chair. "My energy gives out now and then," she said. "Inside, I still feel like a schoolgirl, but sometimes my body can't keep up with what I want to do. When that happens, I have to rest a bit." Although I wanted to get on with my plans, I didn't want to leave if she needed help. "I'll scrub the carrots," I said. I picked up the brush and turned on the faucet. When I finished, Aunt Ethel said, "Could you shred them for me too? I'm feeling better, but I don't have the strength that I used to have." Using her old-fashioned grater, I shredded all the carrots, managing to nick my knuckle once. Aunt Ethel stood and began sifting flour. "I'm fine now," she said. "You go ahead on your hike." I watched her measure and stir ingredients for a few minutes to be sure she didn't have another dizzy spell. Then I slipped on my backpack and headed for the treehouse. Birds chittered in the treetops, greeting the sunshine. I walked quickly. As I approached the treehouse, I saw Mrs. Stray eating breakfast. I stopped moving and watched. I could tell she saw me, but she continued to eat. "Hello, kitty," I said. "Good kitty, kitty." "Nice, Mrs. Stray." Her tail swished back and forth, but she kept eating. A sudden movement in the bushes behind her caught my eye. A small orange kitten trotted out of the undergrowth, followed by a black and white kitten. Last came a third kitten, who looked exactly like Mrs. Stray. The kittens nudged their faces under her belly and began to nurse. I waited, wondering if there were more. But the kitten parade ended. How was I going to tame and rescue 4 cats? One had been enough of a challenge. "You're going to stand there watching them cats all morning?" Willie leaned out of the treehouse windows. The cats scattered when he spoke, so I knew they could hear him. I wondered why animals could hear him when most humans couldn't. "Hi, Willie. I saw your spade and the flowers. Good idea bringing the flowers." I picked up the bucket of daisies and the spade, then headed toward the old railroad trail. Willie floated along beside me. "I'm sorry I can't help you carry those," he said. "Course, if I could manage a shovel, I'd have dug the leg up myself long ago and wouldn't be bothering you about it." "I don't mind," I said. I look able-bodied, but the truth is, it's all I can do to pick up a book. And I had to practice 2 years before I could manage that. At first, my hands went right through the pages. I've got the hang of it now, and I can move an object or two before I run out of strength. I didn't answer. I was too jittery for conversation. The closer we got to the cemetery, the more I worried someone would see me and call the police. I spotted another railroad spike, which I worked loose and put in my backpack. We reached the Y and turned toward the cemetery. Soon I stood at the edge of the graveyard, looking carefully in all directions. It was as empty and still as it had been the day before. No cars on the street, no people anywhere in sight. Even the birds were silent. I planted Florence's flowers first. I walked straight to her grave, then stomped on the shovel. I worked quickly, removing a 12-inch circle of sod, then digging up the soil inside the circle. I dug down about 4 inches, then stuck a clump of daisies in the hole. Kneeling beside them, I patted the loose dirt around the roots. I stood, then poured some of the water from the bucket into the indentation around the daisies. So far, so good. My heart started to race as I went toward the grave of Willie's leg. My stomach did handsprings, threatening to give back the apple. When I reached the small WMM stone, I hesitated, looking around and listening for any approaching vehicles. I saw no cars and no people. Except for a fly buzzing around my head, I heard nothing. I had assumed Willie would want to watch, but he had disappeared. I hoped he was keeping his promise to act as my lookout on the street, ready to alert me if anyone came this way. I removed the brown towel from my backpack and spread it on the grass beside the grave. I licked my lips, took a deep breath, and plunged the spade into the dirt. I removed a bigger circle of sod this time, but when I tried to dig deeper into the soil, the tip of the shovel clunked against something hard. A rock? I moved the shovel over a couple of inches and tried again. Clunk. I jabbed the spade into the dirt several times, moving it an inch or two each time, but the result was always the same. Clunk, clunk. It was a metallic sound. Willie had told me his leg's little casket was made of wood, not metal, and surely it would have been buried deeper than this. Each time I tried to dig, my shovel stopped when it was only 4 or 5 inches below the surface. If I was hitting a rock, it was a big one, more than a foot across. I continued to poke the spade into the dirt, moving it farther from the center of the circle, until it went straight down without clunking. I angled the shovel to take out shallow scoops of dirt. It took only a few minutes of digging to uncover a smooth, gray metal surface about 18 inches long and 6 inches wide, topped with a handle. What do you think it is? The metal box did not look old. It was enclosed in a heavy plastic bag that had been stapled shut. I didn't know when plastic bags or staplers were invented, but I was fairly certain it was later than 1903. I realized someone else had dug here after Willie's leg was buried and had left this box in the grave. "Willie," I said, "are you here?" No answer. I pulled apart the bag where it was stapled and opened the plastic so I could grip the box's handle. I yanked as hard as I could, but the box stayed securely in the ground. Abandoning the spade and digging with my fingers, I loosened the dirt around the metal until I could lift the box out of the hole. I tore away the rest of the plastic bag. The gray metal box looked like the small fireproof box that Grandma kept the deed to her house and other important papers in. A brass lock held the top closed. I wondered who had the key. The box fit in my backpack, so I stuffed it in and continued to dig. About 2 feet farther down, I came to chunks of rotted wood. Kneeling in the dirt on the side of the grave, I picked the pieces of wood out of the hole and tossed them aside. The hole smelled like rich garden soil after a rain. I hoped there were no worms. I've never minded handling worms when I go fishing, but this was different. Gritting my teeth, I thrust both hands into the damp dirt at the bottom of the hole. My fingers closed on something solid. I swallowed hard, then pulled it up. I tried to remember the names of human leg bones. Tibia, femur, which was the big one? All I knew for sure was I held part of Willie's leg in my hand. I didn't bother to brush off the dirt that clung to the large bone. I laid the bone on the towel and stuck my hands back in the hole. Nervous sweat soaked my shirt. If anyone had sneaked up behind me and whispered, "Boo," I would have fainted and toppled headfirst into the open grave. Okay, that's the end of chapter 12. What do you think that metal box is? What do you think is in that metal box? Oh my, I think Mr. Turlip is going to be a little upset. Okay, well, tune in tomorrow. I'm telling you, it just keeps getting better and better. Okay, we'll see you tomorrow.